come to one of our meetings yet. And well, I guess we technically haven't had a 2 p.m. But regardless, I'm a junior studying computer science. And this past summer, I interned remotely at Fidelity Investments, which is a big financial company. Not a bank, but still a financial company. Supposed to be in Texas until Corona, so did it from home.
I'm Camila, mentorship director. Hello. I interned for Microsoft this past summer, also remotely, because it'd be like that. I worked under the Xbox Studios group as an Explore intern, which is an internship specifically made for freshmen and sophomores.
Chris, you want to go?
Yeah.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris. I am the president of Night Hacks. And this summer, I interned at Microsoft in the Azure Compute organization. So if you go to portal.azure.com, I made a tiny, tiny part of that this summer remotely. And it was a lot of fun. And I just accepted a full-time return offer. So I'll be going back to Microsoft after I graduate.
Woo! I wish there were like reacts in Zoom.
I thought there was a way to do that.
Oh,
There
Anna,
are.
I got
You can
it.
do React, yeah. Are we going in a specific order, or are we just kind of like going for it?
Just go for it.
Hi guys,
Go for it.
I'm Brooke. I'm the sponsorship director. Last fall, I was an intern at LSQ. It's a pretty small financial company. It's like a small business loan company in downtown Orlando. And I did web development. I did back end, front end, and design. I tried all three. And super great. I had a really, really good experience. Highly recommend LSQ if you guys are looking for a local internship.
Hi everyone.
Jen, your turn.
My name is Jin. I'm currently a senior at UCF. This semester is probably going to be my last semester unless something super unexpected happens. So I interned at Facebook last semester. I was on the jobs team. I'm not sure if anybody has seen that Facebook actually has a jobs tool, but that was what I worked on and what my team works on. And so this was last summer. I worked there virtually. And last year, summer 2019, I worked with Deloitte as a solutions engineering intern.
Yeah, it's recorded so that people who can't attend can see. Okay, so we already have a few questions. The first one is, as interns, were you paid for your work? And do you feel like there were any other perks to your internships? Anyone can answer. Yeah.
Are you just like shouting out? Okay. I was paid.
So if you guys want to like direct the question at a certain person, just like put it in front of the question. Like, this is for blah. Other than that, anyone can answer, I'm assuming. So yeah, just
Okay.
answer if you want.
I mean, I'll go, I guess. I was paid. I feel like most CS internships are paid nowadays, just because they're so competitive. Like, people are always looking for CS interns. So if companies want to get good people, they're probably gonna pay you. And some internships also, I know, include like people go out to Seattle and stuff for internships. I was here in Orlando, but I was paid pretty well for my time.
Microsoft interns, you guys were paid, right? Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
were paid.
I was gonna say yeah.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think most internships are paid these days. I think the only ones that might be like research sometimes might not be paid if it's for a lab. But yeah, we were paid, and other perks like they sent us equipment, and some of us, we got to keep the equipment. So I'm looking at everybody on my nice Microsoft monitor right now. And we were supposed to, when we were supposed to be in person, they were going to pay for our housing as well, and like transportation while we were there.
Yeah, so you get like, when you first start, you get like a welcome package. And like at the end, some people got to keep the the like computers or monitors and stuff, but everyone was sent out like something to work on, so you didn't use your personal laptop at all. You got paid. You also got paid overtime if you went overtime, but that pretty much didn't really happen. Travel stipend, yes, so they pay for all your flights there and back, and either like a lump sum for housing, or you can get corporate housing. And you also, since you were a Microsoft employee, you were brought onto their insurance plan. So you had really nice insurance that you didn't have to pay for. So you already know I tried to go to the doctor as much as possible whenever I needed to go. As well as you get like an employee discount on their website for any Microsoft or Lenovo products or any like affiliated products.
You
Does
also
anyone
get
else want to
Xbox
answer?
Game Pass for free, by the way.
Yes,
That's a
Game
cool
Pass.
perk.
Wow.
You get like codes
Nice.
for Game Pass and other games and stuff.
Microsoft.
Okay.
Be talking about their perks. I'll talk about Facebook's perks too. I think that a lot of it is pretty similar. Like there's also relocation. There's a relocation, I don't know, amount that you can either opt for, or you can also take corporate housing. Like there's also the insurance plan. It doesn't cover dental or eye though. I think that's only for full-time employees. You get like, I think 26 mental therapy sessions. So if you're super stressed out, you can do that. And unfortunately, we are in a virtual situation. Otherwise, if you're working on campus, there is free food, so you don't have to worry about cooking if you're there. And I don't think you can see this, but I got this t-shirt too.
Ooh, very nice.
I was trying to find my bottle, I couldn't find it, but yeah, we got that welcome package thing too.
Okay. Does anyone else want to talk about perks, or all good? Okay. So, Brooke, what kind of questions were you asked for your internship interview? I'm interested in full stack development, but I don't know what kind of questions to expect.
So I had kind of a non-traditional interview. Usually, I think you would get some technical questions at least. And you probably have a behavioral interview. I had a kind of weird situation for two reasons. For one, I was going in with no knowledge. So I had never done any kind of web development before I had this internship, and they knew that hiring me, like I told them that straight up. I was like, I don't know anything about web development. And they kind of have a really interesting situation where they're willing to like pay you to learn. So they like teach you the stuff you need to know as you go along, which worked out super well. And I learned so much and like got paid to do, which is crazy. So I actually didn't have a technical interview for that one. And I wasn't asked any technical questions. They just asked me. The other weird part was that I was in Germany when I was going to this interview. So I was doing research in Germany that summer. And they just like called me. They basically FaceTimed me for like half an hour and asked me about my research in Germany, what I was doing, like what I contributed to that team. They'll probably ask you, if they don't have a technical interview, they'll ask you about projects you've worked on. So, I mean, post-class projects, senior design projects, any projects outside of class, hackathon projects. Good to know. Good to have those and good to be able to talk about them, because that's what they asked me about.
The next question is, how did all you guys get your first internship?
Career fair.
Yeah, I can sort of touch on that, and I see there's like how hard was it to find an internship, especially in your sophomore year. So
Yeah, that one was like the next one I was gonna ask.
Yeah, so especially for freshmen and sophomores, but also in general, I went to as many recruitment events as possible where you could talk to like actual people from the company. Other than applying online and researching the company, I just tried to go to as many of them as possible to show like, yes, I'm really interested. Like, I'm following up with you after you told me the next steps. Like, what else should I look out for? What do you guys value? And as well as like, you're also kind of meant to be interviewing them for a culture fit. Like, like questions about their company to see if you are actually a good match with them. And for freshmen and sophomores, a lot of bigger companies will have freshman and sophomore programs. I know Facebook has Facebook University, Microsoft has the Explore program. There's a couple other ones.
Google has STEP.
Yeah, Google has the STEP program, and so on.
I think people got something in their email about it, Knight's mail, about them having an info session about it soon. So you should go and look at that again.
Yeah, or at least blasted it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, basically like the career fair and any recruiting events partnered with clubs like us helped me the most.
Okay. So did anyone else want to answer the how hard was it to find your first internship, especially your sophomore year?
Yeah, I
Go
have
for it,
an.
Chris.
Sorry.
I'll answer the part about how many internships you apply to and how many return offers did you get, because I applied to a lot. So I was like, quantity will work, and I guess it did, but and you don't hear back from most of them. Like most of your resumes and stuff will get sent into the void, and you don't know, even if the human sucks, you know, some companies use those algorithms. Have to use some of those higher view things, where like an algorithm analyzes your facial expressions, which is not fun. But yeah, so I applied to a lot, and then I got like through to 2 actual interviews, one with the company I ended up working for, and then I did do some kind of technical interview for a Google position that didn't go well, but it was my first time, so it was okay. But yeah, you'll send a lot of stuff out into the void.
What about you, Chris?
The point I wanted to make is that when you're like a younger student, you often find yourself in this situation where like you need experience to get experience, because you need experience in order to get like your first internship. And so I think that the most important thing that you can do is do projects and then put them on your resume. And they don't have to be super complicated. They can be just things that you're interested in. And my second recommendation along those lines is going to hackathons. That is a huge way that you can up your game as far as recruiting is concerned. And I'm going to make a shameless plug for Night Hacks, which is October 9th through the 11th. Go to nighthacks.org to register. But the reason why I mentioned hackathons is because both Microsoft and my internship at JP Morgan, I got as a result of networking with recruiters at hackathons. JP Morgan, I applied online and there was some issue, like the system lost my application basically after I already passed their code screen. And so I asked the recruiter that I met about it, and he's like, oh, let me check. And he went in and he's like, oh, like the system had an error and kicked you out, but like we can fix it. And then he put me back on track for the recruitment process. And then Microsoft, also I networked with the recruiter at a hackathon, and that really helped because they knew who I was when I applied online, and then I was able to get an interview and go through that process. So highly recommend projects and hackathons, especially for younger students.
The next question is, what is something that you wish you knew when applying for internships, or any tips you can share? Other than the hackathons.
I was definitely like, my confidence was very low, especially with what Chris mentioned, like you need experience to get experience, and like I just didn't have any. My high school wasn't like a magnet school. I messed with like the HTML and CSS of my Tumblr page. So that was mainly it. So like I didn't even bother going to events because I was like, oh, like why would they want me to work there? But yeah, the whole point of internships is like they're not expecting you to be like a full-fledged software engineer already. They just want to see from what you've done, whether it's like personal projects on your own, hackathons, research, anything that you have passion and are interested. That's mainly what they want to see.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry.
yeah, just like at least try for any opportunity that you see. Because if you don't, then someone else will be like, well, I don't have the things for this, but I'll try anyway. And that's how people get stuff. Like you don't have to have like all the requirements necessarily. So, bro, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna second that. I had an assumption at some point that I had to like know lots of things to get an internship and be able to do all this stuff, and they were like hiring me to get things done. For the most part, they're not hiring you as an intern to like do a million things. Like you're probably not gonna. It sounds depressing, but you're not gonna make that much of a difference in the company. And that's okay, right? Like you're there to learn, you're there to better your own skills, and they know that, and they pay you to do that willingly. And like, yeah, you want to like try your best and stuff, but you don't need to, again, like you if you don't apply, you definitely won't get it. Like you might as well try, because if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to. And if you do, you might, there's more of a chance if you do. The other thing, this is kind of a weird piece of advice, but I think if you're interested in industry at all, I would try to get an internship before you get a job. It's the analogy I used talking to someone else the other day. It's like living with someone before you get married to them. Like obviously y'all can do whatever you want, and I'm not judging people who don't live together first. But like for me, like I want to live with someone, make sure I'm like compatible with someone before I married them, And the same way with jobs. Like I thought I wanted to do web dev. Like I thought I wanted to be in industry, and I had an internship, and it was a great experience. I loved it, but I learned like that's not what I wanted to do. Like that's not. Like I want to go into research and I want to teach. And I think it's totally fine to. My best friend gave me a really good piece of advice one time, which was time that you spent figuring out what you don't want to do is just as important as time spent figuring out what you do want to do. Just because you spend time on something and realize, hey, that's not what I want to do in the future. That's time well spent.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Like if you don't apply, like you definitely won't get it. So don't let fear of not getting an internship deter you from it. Also, don't think that a company is way above your reach. I think that was one mistake that I made earlier on. In my freshman and sophomore year, I never dreamed of applying to companies like Google, Microsoft, or Facebook because I thought that they were too good for me. So when my junior year came, I started seeing, I didn't bother applying, but my friends applied and I started seeing them getting internships. And I was like, oh, maybe this is something actually achievable. So I started applying then, but I didn't practice for my interviews then. So I failed a lot of my interviews. But don't be afraid of failing, because like even if you get an interview, but you're not prepared, like you think you're not ready, at least you know what, like you might be able to get something out of the interview. At least you know how that interview process works, so that the next year when you're more prepared for it, you know how to like be able to like pass the interview. So like even just getting the interview and getting the experience helps.
Okay, so let's see. Did you feel qualified for your internship just through your education at UCF, or did you need after-hours stuff to be competitive? I love that everyone's laughing at this. It's not a good sign. But go ahead, answer.
Chris, you wanna?
Yeah, sure. Well, short answer is no. I did not feel qualified. I did not feel like there are several times in every internship I have where I just like sit there and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But then you like figure out what you're doing. And also, first off, companies know this. Like companies know that you don't know what you're doing and they're prepared for that. And the second thing is, they provide a lot of resources to help you learn. Like at Microsoft, they gave us all free subscriptions to Pluralsight, which is this online coding training platform, and they encouraged us to like take some time during our workday and learn. Like I told my manager, I don't really know about this framework. I'm gonna do a Pluralsight on. He's like, sounds good. Like that's a great use of time. There were also like other internal learning resources. And then a lot of companies actually have libraries where you can take out books, or you can get like free subscriptions to different things. So the point is that there are a lot of resources to help you learn at companies that they provide you.
Anyone else?
We also were assigned mentors. So we definitely like set up multiple meetings a week with our mentor, and we just came to her and we were like, we don't know what's happening. We keep getting this error. We don't know why, and we've been trying to figure this out. Please help. So other than the mentor, but also the manager and then anyone else like working in your sphere, they're more than willing to help you. Like they know that you don't know everything. I even before my internship started, I emailed my manager like, hey, what are we going to be using so I can learn it ahead of time? He was like, yeah, no, don't bother with it. We factor in you guys learning. We want you to learn and adapt on the job.
So how did you all find out about the internships you went for?
I Googled internships for CS sophomores and also at a recruiting event that Microsoft did, the recruiter mentioned that there was an internship specifically for freshmen and sophomores. I also like at career fairs and also hackathons. Shout out to Night Hacks, go to Night Hacks hackathon. A lot of companies will come to those hackathons because they see those students are going out of their way to go to hackathons, work on projects that they're interested in, and they go to the hackathons to recruit from there. So a lot of companies will tell you all about like what opportunities they have and programs that they have for you.
Yeah, career fairs were how I found out about all my internships. I kind of would suggest looking out for people who are going to be there before you go, and if they're interesting to you. And then the recruiters will really like, you ask them like, hey, what kind of opportunities do you have? So that's their job, right? They'll tell you, here are the kinds of people we're looking for. And sometimes they'll just tell you straight up like, hey, we're looking for juniors and seniors, or we're looking for people who've taken this class. And that's not something you're going to know ahead of time, and in which case you just say, okay, so come back next year or whatever. But sometimes they are looking for freshmen and sophomores. So definitely, I think they're going to have some virtual career fairs. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I would check that out.
I will say keep an eye out for those emails that Jesse Thomas and Charlize Hilton Brown sends out. They tend to send out whenever companies have events that they do on campus. Because those events, the companies are going to campus to recruit from UCF. So they're specifically looking for UCF students to hire for their internships and jobs. Whereas if you just apply online, it may just go somewhere in the void and you don't really have a point of contact to follow up on your application. So definitely look out for those. I also found out about a lot of companies by attending a career fair at the Grace Hopper conference. So I'm not sure if everybody here knows what it is, but it's a conference for basically women in tech and women in computing. So it's the biggest conference worldwide. If you ever get the chance to attend, I would highly recommend it. Lots of companies go there specifically to hire women in tech. And like a lot of those companies are specifically targeting women in tech, whereas the career fair at UCF might be a little bit more general in terms of the different fields that they're recruiting for.
What about you, Annabelle? How did you hear about your internship?
Well, I don't remember exactly because, like I said, I applied to a lot, but I'm pretty sure I went to Grace Hopper last year. I'm pretty sure I talked to someone from Fidelity there, and gave my resume. So I think that's how I got on their system. But I mean, one of the great things about technology is everyone needs technology. So pretty much any company with more than 10 employees needs someone dedicated to technology. So there's lots of different places open.
So about Grace Hopper, isn't there some sort of soft software or something like that where you can put your resume and employers can access that? I remember that being a thing.
Yes, there is the resume database that you can put your resumes in, and you do not have to be attending the conference to put your resume in. So I know of some friends who put their resumes in even though they weren't attending the conference, and some companies actually reached out to them. So I would do that if you guys have the opportunity to. And maybe we can like even put a link somewhere in our Discord or something.
Yeah, I did this like earlier today, so I'm looking for the link now.
We can put it in our Discord. That's something we can do. Okay, so the next question is, do you care about the location of the company? Would you rather intern for a local company rather than one further away or even out of state?
Personally, the location of a company is pretty important to me, and I really like the opportunity to go somewhere else, especially because a lot of the time, if you're doing an internship, like your travel's paid for, your housing's paid for, so or they're paying you enough that you can cover those things. So and I was able to like go to Houston for a summer and see how it was there, and I was supposed to go to Seattle this summer to see how it is there. But I think it's a great opportunity if you are able to take the summer and essentially travel for free. Definitely take that.
Yeah, mine was local because it was during a school semester, so I was here taking classes in fall and working, which was very busy. If you can do it over the summer, highly recommend. But I think, yeah, I think it would be, if I had the opportunity, I totally would have gone out of state too, but local works as well.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the same page as Chris, basically, where I want to get the heck out of Florida. So when I'm looking at summer internships, when I know like I'm not gonna be here for school, I don't care. I will explore any new city. I love doing that. But having the opportunity to do an internship while you're taking classes is extremely helpful. Because you can just take like a lighter class load, and instead of going into debt during that semester because of tuition, you can make money and get more experience. And you'll also won't have to wait a year until you can do an internship in the summer. And you're that way, it's also a lot easier to make more like long-lasting connections because you can intern with them for like multiple semesters in a row, whereas for the summer you go there for 3 months and then you have to leave to go back to school. But if you intern locally, you can be there for like the whole year and have mentors there.
So the next question is, how do you prepare for technical interviews? And do they let you know what they're going to ask you in advance?
So I think most companies have a general idea of what they're going to ask you, like whether it's coding or whether it's like coding or behavioral, but they won't tell you like exactly what questions they're going to ask. But if you get a chance to talk to recruiters, it'll be a good idea to just kind of ask them what sorts of questions should you prepare for, like whether it's going to be purely behavioral or if it's going to be purely technical, so that you can prepare better ahead of time. A lot of tech interviews tend to ask coding questions that are very lead code style. So lead code is an interview prep tool website. It's probably one of the most popular interview prep tools out there. So I would definitely recommend practicing on lead code if you can before to prepare for your tech interviews. There's also like a premium membership that you can get. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but yeah, one thing with LeetCodes, there's also a premium membership that you can get. It's not like mandatory, but it can be helpful if you want to filter by the types of questions that certain companies ask if you're targeting specific companies. Like I've personally found it helpful for my case.
I've heard, I have never like practice with it. But I've heard that Cracking the Coding Interview is a book that's pretty helpful when you're preparing. I've heard that from multiple people.
I think the thing I've been told a lot is pretty much anything on your resume is for your game. So like, don't put something on your resume if you don't actually know it. Like, I think I was asked what language I would prefer to like write out my low coding answers in, and I chose C because that was what I was most comfortable with. But if you put like, oh yeah, I'm totally an expert in this language, even if you're not, like, don't do that because they might ask you about it.
One thing about
Another thing for
sorry.
go for
I
it.
just wanted to
Go for it.
put it because Annabelle mentioned C. The thing about coding interviews is most companies aren't really particular about the coding language that you're using, as long as you're able to, as long as you mention that you're comfortable in a particular language and you're able to solve the problems that they give you in that language. Most companies are typically fine with that.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to relate to like the actual job. And one last note, I wanted to mention, other than the coding interview part, which Cracking the Coding Interview and LeetCode will definitely help you out with that, make sure you brush up on behavioral questions. Like, people want to work with people that they would enjoy talking to and interacting with every day. So it's definitely not a part to just like be like, whatever, I don't have to practice for that. Like, definitely go over it, and like look into what companies specifically look for in their principles. Like, I think Amazon has leadership principles, Microsoft's likes like empowering other people and that sort of thing. So don't overlook that part.
I think also most of the data structures or algorithms I've had to use for interviews have been covered as part of CS2. So I highly recommend, like, if you really work hard in your CS1 and CS2 classes, that covers most of the data structures and algorithms that you would be required to like have in your toolkit when you're doing a technical interview. So also just working really hard in those classes can help you build up the skills that you need.
For sure.
Another thing that I wanted to mention is that we'll be having mock tech interviews with SWE as a workshop. I don't remember what day, I'm sorry, but it's on our calendar and I wish I kind of remembered now. But I can tell you at the end of this.
2nd.
It's October 2nd? Yeah, it sounds right. It is October 2nd, you're right. So we'll be doing that with SWE. You should come to that if you really want to practice your mock tech interview skills or your tech interview skills. So your next question is, let's see. What do you think made you stand out as a candidate and got you selected, especially with the competitive Silicon Valley companies? That's a good question.
I think for certain companies like Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, I think the important thing is to like, since we're at UCF and they do hold events on campus, definitely attend those events, because if you attend, typically they have some sort of system where you're able to show that you have attended, and you can also have a chance to talk to the recruiter in person and they'll usually remember you better that way. So I felt that really helps you to stand out a little bit more, and they're usually more willing to set up an interview for you if you attend those events. Like, I found that my interview, like the success rate of me getting an interview has been significantly higher whenever I attend these company events where I'm able to talk to a recruiter in person. So that's the application part, right? Like, that's just about how to successfully get an interview, about like getting an internship, like if it's just about getting an internship though, like that still ultimately comes down to whether you're able to pass that interview. So definitely like after you've gone the interview, like definitely practice for that and try to research like how that interview is being conducted and what things you need to prepare for in order to be able to pass that interview.
Yeah, like they're coming to UCF, so they want UCF students. They want you guys. You just have to be a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable and putting yourself out there. So just like it's not even us versus Silicon Valley software engineers. They come here for us, and you just have to go and talk to them. Yeah, talking to them is pretty much what helped me the most.
So someone asked if you guys wouldn't mind sharing your resumes for your first internship, if you still have them. They said, I think it would be nice to see where you all started. Is that something you'd be comfortable with doing, or?
I have to
Yeah,
check.
I'm fine
I'm
with
not sure if I
that.
have a copy of it. I might have
Okay,
it.
I have many
then you guys can
copies.
post them. Okay, so you can post them on the Discord then, once this
I
is
mean,
done.
like, remove your personal information, right? Don't forget to remove, like, your address and
Yeah.
stuff. Just reminder there. Yeah. I don't even know where mine is, but I would share it if I had.
Yeah, I don't have my first one anymore. Just because I kept editing the same document every time, so now it's gone.
So let's see. Your next question is, I saw one earlier that I thought was really cool. What were your favorite and least parts of your internship? Does anyone have like a least favorite part?
I think my least favorite part is that it's virtual. I was really looking
Yeah.
forward to I've heard about how good Facebook's like free food is, and like the chefs keep posting on like our internal Facebook company group about like recipes to try out. So I was kind of bummed out
Dang.
by that. But like my
Oh.
favorite part, I think Facebook's engineering culture is pretty unique. Like Facebook is a tech company, so they develop all their internal tools. So they have some really cool productivity tools. For example, if you're not sure how to code a certain thing up, but you think that it might contain certain kinds of certain segments of code, you can type that into the search tool and it'll pull up like similar examples of what you can use in your own code. So I felt that that really helped me like speed up my productivity a lot, because I feel like a lot of times like the thing I have with personal projects is that there sometimes isn't enough resources for me to figure out how to get something to work with a certain framework. So that really helped smooth the friction for me.
I guess, like, we're doing favorite and least favorite parts of our internship. I'll read the chat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Your least favorite
Yeah.
part. Paying attention, I promise. I think my favorite part was my coworkers. I had really, really good coworkers, and that kind of made the experience for me. I had a Git wizard who sat right behind me. Basically, just a guy who was really good at Git, and I didn't know that much about Git going into the internship, and he taught me like everything I needed to know. And he wasn't like my mentor or anything. I just like asked him a lot of questions, and he was fine with that. So like I got really lucky with people who would, like, if I asked any of my coworkers stuff, they'd be willing to sit down and explain it to me. We also had a pretty nice snack bar. Like, we got a lot of free snacks, so that was a perk. And it was just a nice company to work for. The downside was it was pretty monotonous, which was, I think, what I didn't really like about it. That I decided, like, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. Sitting at a computer and coding for your whole day is not my cup of tea. Like, sitting for 8 hours and not talking to people. Like, some people like that for sure. But it's just not my, I mean, maybe it's different in other companies, but I would sometimes interact with my coworkers, but for the most part, right, you're just sitting and writing code. And so that for 8 hours was probably my least favorite.
Anyone else want to go?
Yeah.
No? Yeah?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think my favorite part about working at Microsoft is they were very focused on like personal growth. They talk a lot about growth mindset. And I think it's really important. Like I was actively encouraged to take time out of my day to go learn things. They even had a competition within my within the cloud and AI business group to they launched this Microsoft Learn competition, and the top 75 people in cloud and AI that like scored the most points on their learning platform, they got like a Microsoft Store gift card. Like they really encourage people a lot, and it's part of their review process. Is like, what did you learn? Like, how are you going to continue learning? So I think that's really important, and that made me feel like personally valued, and also like it's somewhere I could keep growing in the future. I think that the only part, I guess, I don't want to say least favorite, but like the most, the part where I was frustrated, and this is at like every company I've been at, is like it feels like during the first couple of weeks, like sometimes the ramp up can be really slow just because there's so much that you don't know. Like, well, you can't just start making changes in a code base that's like tens of thousands of lines of code. You have to spend a lot of time figuring out what's going on, figuring out like, you know, getting a really good scope of what your changes should be. But that's where, like, if you have a really good team, you're able to learn a lot by asking your coworkers and asking your manager. And you end up learning a ton just by, you know, during that period. But sometimes, like when you're in it, it can feel like you're moving too slowly.
Camilla, did you want to answer?
I was just gonna say, plus getting access to all of their systems and softwares, that can take a while in itself. So you need to get permission for everything.
Yeah, that was basically like my least favorite part, especially with things being online. I like couldn't log into anything until 4 days into like my first week. So it was kind of frustrating on that part. But it was also my first internship, and apparently that's pretty normal for like everyone, where it just takes a while to ramp up. And also, as Chris was saying, like, I really appreciated how supportive everyone was, because a big thing for me is like my lack of confidence as a software engineer. I straight up felt like I am not able to do this within like this time, and they were like, "No, you got this. You'll figure it out. We'll help you." And they did. Like there were so many different ways of like mentoring and resources and libraries that I could use to learn. And yeah, as Chris said, with the review process, it's not just a review process like for the duration of the internship, but in like the last 2 weeks or so, the review process, it also applies for like for the next year, like how will you grow yourself and like what can you do about it, that sort of thing. So that's, yeah, really nice environment.
So what is an example of a behavioral interview question?
Recall a time where you were working in a team and you encountered a challenge, and how did you overcome that? So a lot of it is like, how did you work with other people and overcoming obstacles in general?
Like the interview questions that like everyone else gets, like
Yeah,
other,
pretty much.
other majors, I guess, that aren't technical.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because when I applied to be a resident assistant, that we got that question. That's like,
Yeah.
I think that's a very typical like behavioral. Yeah, I think you could Google them and you might be able to come up with a list. That sounds like something that's very common.
One question that I was asked is like, walk me through a project that you've already built. And that one, maybe that's not, I don't think, that was one of the less typical interview questions that I've encountered, but I thought it was a really good one. Yeah, I think I've been asked, tell me about a time when you've handled conflict in every interview I've ever been in.
Yeah, same. Yeah, more typical. Maybe one software engineer related behavioral would be like, how would you explain the computer to a kindergartner?
I got that from Microsoft.
Yeah.
Another question I've had, I'm not sure if this counts as behavioral. It's more like conceptual, technical. It's more of like tell me about a scenario where you faced an annoying bug and how did you solve that?
Mm-hmm. Can you give a sample response to that conflict question? So there is no like one right response, but they want to see like, they don't want to hear like, it happened and then I blocked them and ignored them and then nothing changed. Like they want to see positive net change, even if even if not necessarily everyone was happy about it. When you work in teams, you don't necessarily have to like get along with everyone, but you do have one goal that you all work together for. So it's just managing like, no one has to be besties, but you want to achieve that goal. And if you don't have to conflicts with John, I can start.
Bro. Kidding, like, I don't like to get into conflict with people a whole lot, so I'm like, I just like neutralize arguments before they start. So I'm like, I don't argue a lot. So I'm like, what conflicts do I have in my life? So if you're like that, don't have any conflicts, let's start one, just so you can, reference this.
I mean, that's an example. Like you
things,
start preemptively, like doing stuff so to avoid and deal with conflict, so you don't have to let it bubble up to like the peak. There you go.
I think the way that I answered this question when I last received it was I had an internship where like my project like a week and a half in got canceled in a previous internship, and they were like, whoops. And then they were like scrambling to try and find another project, and I'm like, okay, well, so I went around to like different managers that I had met during the first week, and I started asking them about their projects, and I ended up finding a project that I liked on my own. And then I went to my manager and was like, hey, what if I worked on this project? And like that resolved things in that way. That's the one I used last time.
So what languages did you all use during your internships?
Java. A little bit of JSON.
We did, I can speak English, I promise. I worked on the back end of our web dev stuff in Java, and then the front end was JavaScript. We also used some TypeScript and CSS and Sass, which is a CSS thing.
I used oh, sorry.
Camilla, go ahead.
So I used mainly R and TypeScript. None of which one that I didn't know either of them like at all. Zero beforehand. Beforehand I only knew like a little bit of Python. My project was regarding data aggregation and visualization. So that's why we used R. Yeah, so that's another example of you don't have to know whatever you're gonna work on, because I didn't at all.
For my Microsoft internship, I did pretty much TypeScript, which also did not know going in, and had to learn using the Pluralsight courses on it. And previously at other internships, I've done like JavaScript for React. I did Python and C++. And then I did a little bit in C for like a camera system at my first internship at Lockheed. So usually only like one language per internship, but they help. You don't have to know it beforehand. They like help you learn once you get there.
Yeah, so at my internship at Deloitte, I worked with Java using something called something enterprise beans. I don't remember what is it. It's like really weird.
Beans.
Yeah, like you know how Java has a lot of bean stuff like NetBeans and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah, so it was some other kind of enterprise bean. For Facebook, I worked with PHP. It's actually called Hack. It's the internal framework, the internal version of PHP they use. And I also worked with a little bit of React. So that's written in JavaScript. And for getting data from the backend, I worked with this thing called GraphQL. So, and like I didn't know like most of these technologies before I started either. I had a little bit of experience with React for my senior design project, but that was towards the end of my internship that I used it. Like the first 2/3 of my internship, I worked with PHP.
Can you guys describe a typical day during your internship?
Yeah, so a typical day would be I get online. Keep in mind this is remote. I get online, I like check my email, all that, and then my team and I would have like a daily sort of stand up where we go over like how did we conclude yesterday, what did we learn from yesterday, what's our next steps for today, and anything else like on our schedule. Because throughout the week we would have either a general meeting with our managers and mentors and everyone in the team, or like one-on-ones with our manager, or meetings with our mentors, and so on. And then after that, we would actually do the work. And then throughout the day, there would be a lot of events put on by Microsoft, whether it's social events, learning workshop events, networking, learning about other groups or aspects within the company, or like a new tool that they made. And we'd end the day with a similar sort of stand-up of like, all right, here's what we got done, here's our next steps for tomorrow, things to keep in mind, and that sort of thing.
Anyone else who had an in-person one wanted to answer that?
Mine wasn't in person, but I can try to answer from my
Okay, go for it.
too. So I think that my internship was very structured. We had a project plan with 3 milestones that we set out to achieve. So each week I would have specific short-term goals that I wanted to achieve for that specific week. So during the week, I would try to focus on that. So depending on what thing it was I wanted to achieve for the day, I would start off with that in mind. And we had a mentor who was also sort of, it was called our intern manager. They're our main point of contact if we have any questions. So whenever I ran into blockers in my project, I would just ping her, ask her about it. And we didn't have like any team like stand-up meetings, but I had frequent check-ins with my manager. So I would initially, during the first few weeks of the internship, I would set up a meeting with her at the end of the day to just go over what I went into today, and if there was anything that I needed help with, or if there are any blockers that I was facing. She was also really super supportive. So, and also having that frequent check-in help, because especially since everything is virtual, it was really hard to have additional opportunities where people are just like passing by your desk and you can just like, ask them a question. But yeah, I think that's pretty much my day. So I would spend most of the day coding, trying to figure out things, and once or twice a week, our team would have like a virtual hangout. We would play games like Scribble, code names, wavelengths, stuff like that.
I think that's a pretty standard structure. That's what I had in person as well. Basically, we would get in, and I would sometimes be there for the full day, sometimes just a half day, depending on the day of the week. But usually, we would have a stand up in the morning, so like 8:30 or so. We would have just like a meeting where we all stood up, literally, it's called stand up, and would like talk about what we're doing that day, what we did the day before. Kind of give a really short report, and we were a pretty small company, so we would all just kind of like meet up and talk about what we were doing, and then we would just like code for most of the day, and then we would sometimes have like the whole like agile scrum thing. So we would have like postmortems if something went wrong. We'd talk about what went wrong and why and how to prevent it. We would have like design sprints. So people would design something, and then it would get implemented, and then we'd like review it. So it's like a 2-week sprint. I did not have a very structured internship. Mine was kind of like, do it at your own pace. And I just kind of had to like pace myself and make sure I was getting things done and kind of create projects for myself. Like I was started on back end, and I went talked to the front end and design people and was like, hey, can I like work with you guys? And thankfully they were super willing to let me just like start projects on my own or work on stuff that they were doing. So a lot of it really, you do need to be self-motivated, and you need to have the ability to be kind of proactive and do it. Like sometimes people just aren't going to tell you what to do, and you're going to have to go out and do it yourself and find a way to do it.
So that was our last question for the panel. I'm going to post all of the other ones that are left here that we didn't have time to answer in our Discord, and then anyone else who's like a part of our Discord community and like the panelists can answer them. You can keep on adding them. I'm keeping this open until tomorrow, so people who didn't get the chance to attend can still add questions. This is recorded, so it's going to go on our website. What else? If the panelists want to stay and stick around and answer like questions that people didn't get the chance to, answer, or they want to answer, then go for it and stay. But other than that, thank you for coming. Sign in and sign up if you're a new member. So yeah.